Good evening, folks. This is the Factivist report for Sunday, October 9th, 2022. And Dave's got a pretty interesting show tonight. So we're gonna turn it over to him.
Okay, with less than a month to go in the election cycle, I have uncovered some information, and basically it is clear to me that the Republicans could care absolutely less about how they win. They just care about winning. Okay, and it's not just the pundits talking, like the Dana Loesch's, which I'll get into, but it's everybody. The Republicans set these rules and criticize rules in place, and then break the very rules they want to put in, whether it be Donald Trump or whether it be state or local officials or whether it be whoever it is. Herschel Walker's the biggest, dumbest example at this point, but there is a line that Republicans cross time and time again, and they never self-police. Democrats, from time to time, believe it or not, they self-police, and they do. You have in New York, you have Kathy Hochul. You don't have the old governor because he didn't dig his heels in. He resigned. You wouldn't have that. The Republican governor would dig his heels in forever.
The Republican governor would not only dig his heels in forever, but everybody would circle the wagons.
Circle the wagons.
I'm going to say this again. I'm tired of, the right wing putting the left on the defensive where it comes to the parties are the same. There is absolutely not one point of equivalence between the GOP and the Democratic Party, with the exception of the fact
they spend
that
money.
They all take money from corporations. And
Yep.
By the way, you can thank the conservative Supreme Court from 2010 for that ruling. Okay. All right. That's who you can thank for that ruling. That corporate personhood bullshit was the Roberts conservative Supreme Court from 2010. The ruling that Ruth Bader Ginsburg called the worst Supreme Court ruling in history. Okay.
Yep.
So let's get real, folks. Don't expect the Democratic Party to give up their money while the Republicans spend millions of corporate dollars trying to overturn people's rights. Okay. That's not going to happen, because whether the American public wants to accept it or not, they're all willing participants in capitalism, and they respond to the people they see the most. So, no, I am not in favor of the Democrats not spending their money.
Right.
Not now.
So let's start. Everybody knows about Herschel Walker. Everybody knows he has at least one abortion that he paid for, that he denies, and that he is calling for a nationwide abortion ban unless he's paying for it. So, and he has how many kids now? 4 that we know of?
He's got 4 that he doesn't do anything with.
Correct.
Basically.
That we know of, that are now uncovered.
Right.
That he didn't, that he doesn't acknowledge unless they go on a conservative live stream and talk about it.
Right.
But the first point I want to make is this idea of we don't care who they are. We just want them to win. I heard it from Mitch McConnell too. This isn't just her. Dana Loesch doesn't care if Herschel Walker paid a skank for an abortion. First off,
ladies, I'd like you to just drink that headline in. That is a right-wing woman referring to another woman as a skank. If you are voting Republican and you are female, shame on fucking you.
This woman was offered an abortion a second time, and she said, no, I want to have the child. So I don't want to hear that either, that she pushed for abortions time and time again. So Dana Loesch is a right-wing talking head. She's worked for Breitbart. She was on Glenn Beck's show, The Blaze. And she's just, as I said, she's a right-wing talking head, but she is putting forth this strategy that the Republicans do. She basically said she doesn't care if Herschel Walker was paying for the abortion of baby bald eagles. She doesn't care. She just needs him to win, to keep out the radical left-wing agenda.
Right. So we can usher in the era of fascism. So there you go. We can usher in the radical right-wing agenda, which excludes a large portion of the population. So you understand.
Now, I want you to remember last week I mentioned Christina Pushaw, who worked for ex-Georgian president, that's the country of Georgia, as his press liaison or press secretary. Put that in your head. And she's working for DeSantis, and she has a plan. That plan is to treat everyone who disagrees with them as the enemy, shut them out completely, push your agenda, and push their agenda out. Win. This is it.
So we're talking about the country of Georgia as in Russia.
Russia.
So you understand, okay?
As in, again, who? Vladimir Putin. Okay. This is an opinion piece by Maureen Dowd from the New York Times. Very recent. Yesterday. This was an alliance that has been formed over decades. Trump has been looking to plant this guy in for a very long time. Just so you know. He doesn't care about Herschel Walker's policy. He doesn't care about his mental state. He doesn't care about how abusive he is. It's a very good opinion piece, actually. I suggest you read it.
Well, he wouldn't care about how abusive he is because Donald Trump is abusive to women too.
So this is talking about urging the same woman who he paid for the abortion the first time, and she has the receipts. She has a get well card from Herschel. So he urged her to get an abortion a second time, and she said no. She chose to have their son, who, by the way,
is he number 5, or is he?
No, he's number 4. I believe he's number 4.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
Yeah. Now there is another child who is older, and he is a live streamer. He is a conservative live streamer, but he has drawn the line with his father, saying that his father has not been in his life, and he's tired of the lies, and you have to draw the line somewhere. So the GOP will consider this kid to be a rhino. Okay. Well, this is the Daily Beast. The Daily Beast has done a ton of work on the Herschel Walker story.
They actually broke the story.
They broke the story.
Yeah, they broke the story. They're the ones that got the receipts. You know, the other news media picked it up from them.
Right. And again, this is a man who's calling for family values and a national abortion ban.
Without exceptions, by the way.
Without exceptions, unless it's him
Right.
paying for it. And there are going to be a couple of other examples of Republicans putting these rules out, and it doesn't matter how nitpicky it is or how small it is. You can't do it, we can. Remember, Richard Nixon, I can do it. It's legal because I'm the president.
Right.
This is an article. This is an article I wanted to put in here because we see this again, time and time again. So this is by Paul Kane, again, very recent, October 8th. Will old rules of politics apply to Herschel Walker? They did 2 years ago to a North Carolina Democrat. This North Carolina Democrat cheated on his wife. Okay, that's different. He's not calling for, laws against cheating on your wife. That's a personal issue. It's a moral issue. If it comes out, you whatever. Herschel Walker called for a national abortion ban and paid for an abortion. It's almost like that attorney general years ago that called for cracking down in New York. They called for cracking down on prostitution, and he was called with a prostitute. Now he was a Democrat, but guess what? He resigned.
Yeah, he's never come back, by the way.
Never come back. Now he was on a talking head and all that, but he's never been in politics again. So these guys were talking to Cunningham, okay? This guy, Cal Cunningham, ran for the United States Senate in North Carolina 2 years ago. He was actually ahead. This scandal broke, and he lost the election. Okay. By the way, Herschel denies,
he can
signing
deny
the receipts.
He wants. He's lied about his business accomplishments.
Yeah.
He lied about, his education. He never even fucking graduated. He said he graduated with honors. Okay. He's lied about just about everything that comes out of his mouth. If his lips are moving, he's lying. Why should this be any different?
I believe in this video, he's denying the fact that he's wearing a blue shirt.
Yeah, whatever.
I'm just saying. So we're moving to different topics, to different offices. This is Secretary of State. We're going to do a couple, Secretary of State and Attorney General, because the Secretary of State is supposed to be the one to keep the elections fair and honest. Jim Marchant, he's an election denier. So how fair and impartial can you be? He is leading the Secretary of State race in Nevada. So anyone in Nevada that's listening to this, take a look at Cisco Aguilar. I have his campaign page up. So not only is this guy an election denier, Jim Marchant wants to eliminate mail voting, but he voted by mail multiple times. So the rules apply to everyone else, but only to you and not to him.
And by the way, let me just say this, okay? The fact that he uses mail-in voting, as did the other clown in Arizona,
right?
Mark Fincham.
Yep.
Okay, that's a statement right there that there is no fraud going on with mail-in voting if they're using it. Okay, if they're using it, it's perfectly fine to use for everyone else. Just so in case you think that there's a lot of, election fraud going on with mail-in ballots, that's a fucking lie. And the proof is that the Republicans are using it. What they're trying to do is stop people from fucking voting. That's what they're trying to do.
I am one person, and people know this, that I work for the United States Postal Service. From my personal experience, I see a piece of election mail, I have to show it to my supervisor. I see a registration ballot, I have to show it to my supervisor. Now, we typically don't deal with election mail, but I've seen one or two pieces. We have to physically hand it to our supervisor, and they have to inspect it and see, how it got in the mail stream. So do not tell me that this is not being monitored. I'm sick of that, by the way. But just so you know, this is the Democratic candidate for Nevada Secretary of State. Now,
Yeah.
what is his focus? Election integrity and making sure that voter suppression does not happen to immigrants in the state. And why? Because he has a personal investment in it, partially. And the other thing is he's trying to do his job. Now, some of this is about, when he was a kid and all that. I've seen that stuff before, but growing up, his parents told him blah, blah, blah. But here's the paragraph that struck me. More than ever, we need to defend every eligible American's right to vote, remove barriers to voter participation, and make our election as transparent as possible to maintain the public's trust. There it is right there. I'd vote for him if I was in Nevada, as opposed to Jim Marchant, who constantly says, the elections are rigged
Right.
for Democrats.
The elections are rigged, and they're being rigged by the Republican Party. The Republican Party essentially doesn't want the people to vote that they know will not vote Republican. And those people are, for the most part, but not all, people of color, immigrants, gay and lesbian people, transgender people. These are people who are not by and large going to vote for the Republican Party. These are the people they're trying to suppress.
So Deb mentioned Mark Fincham. Again, we have Texas, Arizona, Nevada, all of these border states that are going through this. GOP candidate critical of mail-in voting used mail to vote. They know it's okay. Why are they trying to bash mail-in voting? Because that way they can't intimidate the voters.
It's not just that. Who uses mail-in voting the most?
Yep.
People.
Immigrants.
Yeah. Mark Fincham apparently has been doing this for 14 years, voting by mail. Didn't stop him, did it? Yeah.
Right.
Because he's full of shit. That's why.
Yep. And again, this is Mark Fincham again. How far from reality can a top elections official be? Arizona may find out. So this is Philip Bump. This is September of this year. This is Washington Post. Again, 2/3 of Republicans said Trump was winner. There was a poll, who they thought legitimately won the 2020 presidential election. Texas 2-1 margin. And by the way, 2-1 isn't great either. Indicated they believed President Biden won legitimately. But 1/3 of respondents said Trump was a legitimate winner. But among Republicans, 2/3 said that Trump was the winner.
They're Kool-Aid drinking, non-thinking, don't look shit up voters. I don't know what to tell you. They believe the orange jackaloon.
Right. So Adrian Fontes, I don't think I have his page up, but please take a look at him. That is the Democrat running against Fincham. There was a debate. The focus wasn't on the mechanics of running it properly. It was about Fincham's conspiracy theories about the last election.
Right.
And he was the one that brought it up.
And not only that, in the debate between Katie Hobbs and Carrie Lake, I believe Katie Hobbs is refusing to debate Carrie Lake.
Right.
And the reason she's refusing to debate Carrie Lake is because she doesn't want to talk for an hour about the 2020 election. And that's all she's going to end up talking about. We saw that through the whole primary with the Republicans. That's all they talked about.
So now we have Ken Paxton, who's the Attorney General of Texas, who attempted to unilaterally prosecute election cases. Texas court confirms that the attorney general can't do this. He has to go through the local authorities.
Yeah, put your hand over your heart, you fucking lunatic.
Where, if he can find it, if he has one.
Yeah, I can't stand him.
This is a report that I found denying the right to vote. Politicizing the naturalization process is a novel form of voter suppression. So what they're trying to do is delay a citizen being, or the naturalization of people become citizens so they can't vote in elections. So this is a
Why am I not
legal form.
surprised?
This is a legal form of suppression. A 13-page report. Again, if you're interested, it's here.
Everybody should be interested.
They should be. This is from Common Dreams. This is about election crimes, you know, different degrees and all of that kind of thing, what voter suppression is, what voter intimidation is. We spoke about that on the short show. Threats against election workers, which we heard about during the January 6th commission hearings. So federal election offenses: giving false information when registering to vote, false citizenship claims, voting when ineligible, voting more than once, or using someone else's name to vote. Now, I know that there was someone in office that voted twice, like used two of his addresses. I can't remember who that was.
He's a Republican.
He was a Republican, but I can't remember.
Again, I can't even.
Right.
The victims are the perpetrators. They're always whining, but they're the ones that are getting caught.
So fraud by election campaign officials or other individuals, just take a look at Tina Peters. Changing a ballot tally or engaging in other corrupt behavior, providing a voter with money or something of value in exchange for voting for a specific candidate, threatening a voter with physical or financial harm if they don't vote. And that happens more often than you think. We talked about the Ballot Security Task Force that happened back in 1981, and there are groups that are forming now. There was a rule in place preventing this, but now those rules have lapsed, or there was a statute of limitations that had passed, and after 2017, now you see these groups starting to grow in size. And I have examples for a couple. This is what I was talking about, that 1981 task force. So hold on. So let me see. That basically, there we go. They go through the history of the Ballot Security Task Force, which basically helped a Republican win the New Jersey gubernatorial race back in the day. And they're asking, will the Republicans revert to their old tactics? Yes, they will, because they never stopped doing it, and they were pushing over and over again to relax the rules as they were in place. So we go back to Common Dreams again. I'm just going to talk as this loads because it's going to take some time. A very large portion of the American public now, nearly 1/3 in the United States, worry about violence and intimidation at the polls. And this has increased because of the Trump claims that Trump won the election. And people are worried that when candidates start to lose, things could get ugly. People could be bullied, intimidated. Violence could break out.
And by the way, this constant fear can keep people from the polls. That's voter suppression.
That is
That's
voter
what that's
suppression
designed to be.
and voter intimidation. And the point that we made in the short show is we cannot stand down at this point. We have to fight back whatever we need to do. If we have to stand hand in hand with people and stand as a group and freaking protect each other from being bullied and intimidated, we got to do it. Whatever you got to do.
This only stops when these people are gotten rid of. You need to understand that. Okay? We have a clearer path to eliminate these people right now because we operate in the hall of public opinion. We don't operate in the court of justice where they have to tie every end together. These people can be removed from office by us quicker than the government can remove them. We need to do this.
Right. And for all the bitching and moaning that we do about Marjorie Taylor Greene, Lauren Boebert, Madison Cawthorn, who was voted out, Jim Jordan, all of these guys, Doug Mastriano, who's running, not in office yet, vote them away. If voting really truly didn't matter, the Republicans would not be spending so much time on it.
Right.
And so much time trying to intimidate and suppress voters for
and so
decades.
much time trying to steal an election, because that's exactly what this is, folks. If your vote didn't matter, they know they can't win legitimately. If your vote didn't matter, they wouldn't be doing this shit.
All right. I mentioned again that the Republicans, who are the quote unquote, we call the sane Republicans or the rational Republicans, are fading away. We didn't agree with them to begin with, but they're fading away. And we just had another one resign. His name is Ben Sass. Okay. And he exited. I believe there are 4 anti-Trump senators left. We have Romney, we have Murkowski, we have Susan Collins, and there's one more. And Ben Sass, Ben Sass just left. So now we have a situation where you're going to have a special election in 2 years, but the governor can appoint a senator. So what do you think the question is going to be? So the Nebraska governor, Ricketts, could appoint himself to fill the U.S. Senate seat. So you could bypass everything, appoint yourself.
Oh,
Now,
that's perfect. That's right up the Republicans' alley.
Right. Historically, it's a bad idea, but guess what? The Republicans are telling, screw it, do it anyway. 2 years is a long time to try to push through stuff when you're not following the rules. I mean, this is a rule in place. Personally, I don't think that anyone should be able to appoint themselves in a position.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that have to change about the way we do things where elections are concerned. And that's what the J6 committee is about.
Yep. So next I'm going to go back to New York because we haven't really talked about this race enough, I think. Elise Stefanik is a hardcore Trump supporter. Now, she tries to weasel her way out of the misogynistic talk and all of that. She says something to the effect of, that is a topic of which I disagree with President Trump on. Yeah. No, that's a deal breaker.
No, you know something? Look, look, any woman, okay, who supports Donald Trump signs on to a candidate who has 26 credible claims by women of harassment or abuse, okay? A man who has no regard for women's rights. And you know what? I'm sorry. You're full of shit, Elise, okay? You know, it's the ultimate sellout. So,
She's an election denier. She's, you know, she is fully plugged into the big lie. She is a Trump supporter. I don't care what she disagrees with on him. Okay. Now, I remember back last year when we were talking about, you know, or back when the election, actually 2 years ago, when we were talking about the election, and we brought up the fact that the intelligence community were all backing Biden. And at the time, we were making it a bad thing. Now looking back, the intelligence community was backing Biden because Trump was dangerous.
right.
He's a dangerous guy, and he showed it with January 6th. And he's showing it
with the documents.
Potentially, I mean, all of this stuff is coming out. He's potentially trading documents for information that the FBI has on his investigations.
Yeah, he tried to strike a deal with the fucking National Archives to trade documents for other documents. Let that sink in, okay?
So before you just cancel this guy out, Matt Castelli, simply because he was ex-intelligence, it's not like he's Jason Bourne. This isn't the movies. This isn't TV. He doesn't have, you know, an earpiece in. This isn't Homeland, you know. So I get the whole I'm not thrilled with intelligence myself, but I'm starting to understand that it's a necessary part of it. You know, we do have to work with the rest of the world. We do.
Yeah, anybody who's thinking we're going to go back to 1776 and the rest of the world's going to come back with us, you can forget that shit. Okay, having an intelligence community is absolutely necessary. The whole fucking thing with Vladimir Putin and the Ukraine proves it.
Right.
I'm sorry. Okay, end of story.
And by the way, I'm not saying that the U.S. military doesn't do egregious things. It doesn't cover up egregious things. I'm also not saying that Julian Assange should be incarcerated. I'm not saying any of that. Please don't put words in my mouth. But what I'm just saying about that also is the Republicans are a bunch of fucking hypocrites, because Donald Trump can't bash the intelligence community, can't bash the FBI, can't bash the CIA, and then pardon the Blackwater team for massacring innocent people. Let's just call it as we see it. Now, this individual, Matt Castelli, there are some things that we don't agree with him on. I know Deb doesn't agree with him on saying that assault weapons shouldn't be banned.
Right.
Do I potentially see his point of view? Yes. He was in the intelligence community. I'm sure he's seen some horrible crap and thinks that people should be able to defend themselves, whatever. But he is pro-choice.
I think people should be able to defend themselves too, but they don't need automatic weapons to do that.
No.
They don't.
They don't.
Automatic weapons are used to take out a large sum of people. That's what they're used for. They're murder items. They're items for mass killing.
Right. So,
But if you think I'm going to back whoever, Elise Stefanik over that, that's never fucking happening, because she's a fascist.
So, Castelli grew up in Poughkeepsie and graduated from Siena College in Albany shortly after 9/11, and then that inspired him to work with the CIA. He led intelligence teams in Afghanistan and Iraq to hunt terrorists down, including the unit that found Osama bin Laden, helped track down leaders of Al Qaeda and ISIS, served as the director for counterterrorism in Barack Obama's National Security Council, and continued the role under Trump. So he's running against Elise Stefanik. He knows what Trump is doing. And he's calling it dangerous. And I agree. Okay. The one thing that Elise Stefanik said was that he doesn't represent northern New York because he hasn't lived there. He lived in DC performing his job. So
she doesn't represent anyone. So what the fuck difference does that
make? She represents Donald Trump.
That's right.
So this is an article from last month
and
about Elise
she's a classic example of someone who shifted to the radical right.
Right.
Because why? Because she knew which way the Republican Party was going, and all she cares about is her growth.
She was riding the wave.
Yep.
Whatever it takes to win. Again, a young woman once hailed as the future of the Republican Party embraces Trumpism to stay that way, because that is where the party is going. I just put this in here again with video evidence of the Capitol insurrection. This was that ProPublica article, and also from the New York Times. We had iPhone surveillor or iPhone evidence and camera footage that was taken and tracking down Proud Boys by their iPhone apps and stuff like that. So, you have proper ways to use surveillance, and you have improper ways to use surveillance. And
it certainly does help when the perpetrators took all that time to film themselves breaking the law and post it on Parler.
They were bragging about
Thank you, dumbasses. Have a nice day.
Now, again, I understand New York Times. This is an article by Natalie Singer. This was a few years ago, April 30th, 2018. And it talks about how people typically link the Democratic Party with intelligence for some reason. And the New World Order and globalism, we talked about that too. The New World Order and globalism is fascism.
Right.
At this point, there's a globalist fascist movement, which, by the way, was brought up by WikiLeaks. You can check out that WikiLeaks. It was the latest dump. It was like a year ago, I think.
Yep.
But there is a globalist fascist movement out there.
And
Viktor Orban. Yep. Viktor Orban touring with the Republicans. We have Republicans supporting Vladimir Putin. We have Maloney cozying up with Steve Bannon.
And by the way, we have Maloney's speech being raved about by Ted Cruz, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Lauren Boebert, all of it. The same shit that's being spouted over here about immigrants, gay people, gender identity, all of the same garbage, all out of different mouths, all the same shit, all of it fascism.
So I'm going to read this a little bit. Are you creeped out by the idea of a company checking a job candidate's credit history before deciding whether you hire her or him? Your answer could be tied to your political views. Ironically enough, 62% of Democrats felt creeped out by it, and only 29% of Republicans were creeped out. Republicans are more likely to be positive about surveillance. That doesn't surprise me. Now, the way, and again, I'm not saying this is black and white, but the general idea is that when Democrats talk about surveillance, they're talking about safety and security. When Republicans are using surveillance, they're using it as dirt on people, at least recently. So, and I know this is not the United States, but I wanted to bring this up because I just thought this was ridiculous at the time. The leader of Finland back in August, a video of her dancing at a private party was leaked. And they were trying to say that she was promiscuous and she was using drugs and all of this stuff.
You know what? People have a right to privacy in their own fucking homes, okay? Mind your fucking business. Worry about yourselves, okay? That's all I'm going to say. And by the way, that whole thing about surveillance and checking people out before you get hired, I hate to tell you this, okay?
It's par for the course.
They were doing it before the internet existed. When I filled out applications, I had to give my social security number. What do you think they're doing with that? This is not new shit, okay? It's only new because people are talking about it online now. None of this is new. And by the way, I honestly wish in my store that they check some of these people out better than they do before they hire them.
Yep.
I'll be honest with you. We hired a kid who was fucking posting pictures of himself with a fucking handgun on TikTok. Okay, I think you know.
The United States Postal Service does a criminal background check. Do you want someone walking to your house and dropping things off that has a criminal history, a violent criminal history? No, you don't.
You have to have a background check when you drive for Instacart. You have to have a background check when you drive for Uber. You know what? I say you have to have a background check and you have to pass muster when you run for office. That's what I say.
Now, what I will say also is that doxing, which is bringing up and posting publicly embarrassing or private information about other people, and swatting, I typically hear this from, happening by far right-wing groups. And then in turn, they accuse, it's always Antifa, by the way, Antifa or Black Lives Matter. They always accuse the other side of doing it.
Yep.
Most of the times I see, extremist right-wing groups being the ones that get caught doing it. And Deb and I'm sure moving forward, we're going to be talking about privacy being ripped away via new legislation and the right-wing Supreme Court.
Right. So, because here's what you've got to worry about. They've argued Roe v. Wade on privacy. That's been struck down.
Yep.
They argued gay marriage on the same basis, privacy. They argued interracial marriage on the same basis, privacy. See where this is going? Pretty soon, your personal privacy won't mean shit if the Republicans are elected. You won't be able to look at, we have people paying attention to fucking kids' story hours on the weekends. We have fucking Nazis interrupting people in Jamaica Plain here in Boston to, interrupt drag story hour. That's another thing we're going to talk about, because actually drag is a fucking entertainment. It's an entertainment thing. It's been going on for fucking ever. It's again.
It's pretend. It's acting. It's not sexualized like that. And with kids, come on, stop. But the final thing I wanted to bring up, because next week I'm going to talk more about the violent rhetoric that the Republicans are spouting. And this is when you talk violently, it's going to happen. they're being more blatant about it. We have people just coming out and saying it. So
Donald Trump about
Mitch
McConnell's support for the bipartisan, legislation that will hopefully eliminate January 6th from happening again. What did Donald Trump say? Mitch McConnell has a death wish. What does that sound like to you? What does that sound like to you? Did Mitch McConnell push back? Of course not. Why? Because he's a fully owned subsidiary of Donald Trump. That's why.
Now, we have, I know Deb's spoken with people from the Lincoln Project, but we have promoted the Lincoln Project in the past. The Lincoln Project is actually a Republican PAC that is demolishing some of the Trump messaging. Yep. They are an anti-Trump Republican group, because don't think that the Republicans are going to self-police themselves. It's not going to happen at this point. So
they did a lot of work to combat a lot of the COVID denying bullshit too. They were very active in that.
Right. Yeah. Talking about, imagine the lives saved if DeathSantis had done his job. Blake Masters derides the military, scorns democracy. Just a ton of stuff. It's really, it's really good stuff. And they're Republicans. We disagree with a lot of the stuff that they espouse in terms of their ideology, but they are calling these people out, and it's what is needed right now. And final thing, Ron Filipkowski actually showed me this. This is from the Lincoln Project. The current GOP has normalized chaos and political violence. Americans do not have to accept that. Vote for sanity in November. And by the way, if you are in the GOP right now, if you're a Republican, you do not have to vote for a Republican simply because they have an R by their name.
If you care about this country, and if you actually care about democracy,
yeah,
and if you care about free and fair elections in 2024, you're not going to vote Republican in the midterms, because I will tell you this: you put those people back in power, and right now you could forget any rational Republicans. The last rational Republican standing in the House, the last two, Adam Kinzinger and Liz Cheney, who, by the way, I don't agree with them on any policy, by the way, but I do respect them for what they're doing. He's retiring, and he was once considered the future of the Republican Party as well. And she has lost her election. We don't know what she's going to do come 2024 yet. But she's
kind of a firebrand at this point. She may just be speaking truth to power.
Yep.
We'll see. Personally, I wouldn't vote for her.
I wouldn't vote for her. I don't.
No way. But
look at Liz Cheney. In reality, has voted in step with Trump's policies 93% of the time. But she does not believe that the election was stolen from Donald Trump by Joe Biden, and she does not believe that January 6th was legitimate political discourse. Okay, so that's where we are. She has committed to campaign for Democrats. She has committed to doing everything in her power to prevent Kari Lake from becoming the governor of Arizona. And Adam Kinzinger has said the same thing. He will campaign for pro-democracy Democrats. In Pennsylvania, Republicans are suggesting that people vote for Josh Shapiro. These people are people who get it. It's time for the American public to get it now.
And by the way, this idea of, the lesser of two evils, just stop that. When you have someone blindly following an American despot, that's what he is at this point, Donald Trump, Elise Stefanik, okay? And you have someone else who for all intents and purposes, he is a moderate Democrat, and he actually does lean to the right somewhat. You're moving forward, though. You continue to move forward. If you can find another more progressive Democrat to actually win that seat, that's what you do. You push it forward.
Right.
You get what you can when you can.
He wins. He's not ideal. There'll be another election. But I'll tell you right now, if the GOP wins, you can kiss free and fair elections goodbye. There will be no, there'll be, if this happens in 2022, if they come back in power at the midterms, that is the last legitimate election you will see in this country. Honestly, forget trying to fix it in 2024. It'll be game, set, and match. Understand what we're saying here. It isn't just about Donald Trump. He has left behind a party that is in his control.
He just added gasoline to the racist, misogynistic fire. Right. He really did. I mean, you always had that, underneath. And you always have some people on the other side. I don't want to hear about Robert Byrd. I don't want to talk about that right now. This is pervasive. You had outliers in the Democratic Party, and a lot of the time those outliers get kicked out. Sometimes they don't, but this is pervasive. It's not just one or two guys. You had, how many was it? 140 something? 147
legislators on the Republican side out of 221 at the time of the election in 2020 voted to overturn a legitimate election. They are seditionists. Now, you take those 147 House members, right?
Yep.
All of those seats are up. Guess what? There are now 199 election deniers running on the GOP side, incumbents and their replacements. Understand this, folks, okay? This is in your hands. They're on the ballot. You're the ones that have the power to take care of this.
And by the way, somebody put them on the ballot in the primary.
Right.
Just so you know. Wasn't us. We're not registered Republican. Somebody did that.
I know Madison Cawthorn lost, but you know what? They worked to get him out. They put a guy in that's worse than he is. If that's humanly possible, the guy that beat him in the primary is no prize. Okay.
He's not worse, but the problem is he's more polished and he can talk the hateful speech and kind of take the temperature down in that district, and people will forget about him. He'll be kind of like the gray little man who will vote for hateful policy after hateful policy and be forgotten, and may be able to be reelected 2, 3, 4, 5 times because he doesn't have scandal after scandal after scandal. That's the problem with him. He's for the working man. He's for the, whatever.
That's so full of shit.
Yeah, whatever.
If they were for the working man, they wouldn't stand in the way of the minimum wage going up. There's a whole fucking bunch of crap.
They wouldn't be fighting for friggin', labor busting policies. By the way, we do have a new labor page on Facebook.
Yep. Bring back the labor movement. It's a new group. Yep. And by the way, we should mention that the AFL-CIO is in the midst of its biggest voter drive in history right now because they understand what's at stake here too. Okay. They understand what fascism is all about. We need the American workers to stand up now to this. Every single one of you.
And can I just add something?
Yeah.
I know none of us are super crazy about Bernie Sanders. I know we have a lot of mixed feelings about 2016. And I know that most of us have put it under the water. It's not, it's not the top of our issues right now. But I saw Bernie on the internet today. I don't know if it was an old clip or something, but he said something that stuck with me. He said, this midterm election is the most important election in our nation's history. And I agree with them.
That's not old. That's now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree with them though. I mean, that's a big, bold statement.
Let me just say this about Bernie Sanders. I don't have those problems with Bernie Sanders right now.
I don't need any more either.
I
thought about it a lot. And I feel like the way that I felt in 2016 was how they made us feel that way. They said, you have to feel like you were betrayed. If you didn't win, you can go pout, stomp your feet, be mad, but we moved on. We said,
Yep.
You know what? The court cases, I followed the court cases and no fraud was proven. We trusted the system. We got back involved.
Right.
And then, but all these right wingers, they turned away because their motives weren't, they didn't really want freedom for all. They didn't want truth for all. They wanted to validate their beliefs, and we went a different way. So,
yep.
No, I kind of get the whole, where that went. I'm trying to move forward and
Me
trying
too.
to pay my penance when it comes to that stuff.
yeah, because we were very wrong.
Yeah, we
No,
were.
listen, all of that was based on sound bites and Bernie
Propaganda.
would have won, blah, blah, blah. And,
Yeah.
there's words repeated over and over again.
Yeah.
And Deb fell into it too, and she was in advertising for
And
God
look
knows
at
how many years.
You know what? All of this proves one thing. All of this proves one thing. Nobody, and I don't care who you are, nobody is immune to propaganda.
Yep.
Nobody is immune to propaganda. Not even people who did it for a living. So that would be me. Okay. Because it's different when you're working in a field and you're creating an ad for a company. But when you're doing something like politics and voting, it's personal. So you get caught up in all of that bullshit.
Right.
And, I got caught up in it. I admit it. But you know what? I'm fucking fully wide awake now. Okay. I no longer listen to sound bites. Anybody who's going to post in a group, I'm going to say this now. I don't know how many groups we have, but we have a lot. If you are not vetting your own stuff that you're posting in those groups, then we're going to vet it for you. All right. And
Hi, Marcy.
that will just mean that it's going to take those posts longer to be approved because we all have a shitload of stuff to do. So if you're not, I don't want to see, I would much prefer not seeing a long tome of writing that comes from you that says from CNN. Post the article. That's what you need to do. We want to see the article. We don't want to see a citation that we can't click on and look at. We want to see the piece itself. So I'm telling you that you're not going to just be able to post anything you want without some kind of proof, because we are the Factivist project, and we are that for a reason, because we got caught up in all the bullshit in 2016, and we're not going to let it happen again.
By the way, we've been doing this for a very long time. To follow in the tradition of Halloween, I'm going to do something on a very scary new news network called the Right Side Broadcasting News Network. I did the Halloween James O'Keefe, I believe it was last year, and I think I'll continue that tradition, because when you're reading a piece, first off, before you post something to us, read it. Read it before you post it, because we're going to read it, and if we think it's crap, we're either going to call it out and call it crap, or we're going to just not post it. We need to know who the source is. A lot of times, like when we go on Yahoo News, it'll be Yahoo News, but it'll show the source, and we will go directly to whether it be the Daily Beast or Vox or ProPublica or the Washington Post or the New York Times, whoever it is. And we will read it. And sometimes I will be critical of the Post or the Times and say, oh, well, this is a little skewed. You know, they're going a little too far with this or whatever. Most of the time they're on point.
By the way, let me just say this. We do include Yahoo News stories and we do include MSN. And there's a reason. A lot of times they are a news aggregator. So they pick up stories from other locations.
Yes.
Sometimes those other locations require you to have a subscription to access the article. So if we think you won't be able to get an article from the Post, I subscribe to it.
That's why we do that.
We will put in an MSN because it's taken right from, it'll be at the bottom. It'll say, read it on the Post by clicking here. That's the reason we do that. So we make sure you guys have access to the story itself. So
right.
Those things that are news aggregators, the Daily Beast is both. They can break a story and they can also publish news stories from other sources. So, and I subscribe to the Daily Beast too. So
many times, if I can get something from the Associated Press or Reuters, I will immediately, post it because they're direct source publishers. So I know that they're on point.
They're feeders for sometimes Reuters and AP are feeders for the Washington Post and the New York Times. That's where the nuggets are picked up that they then go and investigate. So there's a reason why we do the things we do. But one thing's for sure, if you're going to post in the groups, it has to be factual. Now, I don't know who this guy is. There's someone named Joanne Kozlowski who tries to post this guy. He's saving the world. This is how he talks. He drives me out of my fucking mind. I automatically, I just block that and her. I'm saving the world from the new world order. It drives me out of my fucking mind.
I need to know who this is.
Oh, yeah. I got to find one. I'm sure she's still floating around.
And by the way, we started this whole thing, I think it was it 2021 or 2020 with Whitney Webb. Okay. We started really diving into these people, saying, okay, because we were taken by Whitney Webb for a short time. And then we're like, wait a minute. She takes little breadcrumbs and just stretches them to the ultimate limit and makes these connections.
Right. And let me just show you, if Whitney Webb were truly a journalist, the biggest story of our times right now is encroaching fascism.
Yeah.
Did she write a book about that? She didn't. You know what she wrote a book about? She wrote a book about Jeffrey Epstein being a Mossad agent. Okay. He's dead. All right. And I don't know who's going to give her the facts on that, but I'm pretty sure that Benjamin Netanyahu didn't give her any documents. So needless to say, I'm not buying the book. All right. I'm just going to kill the recording. We'll talk
Bye, everybody.
next week.
Next week.